Welcome to Behavioral Health Today, a podcast brought to you by the Triad Network. This podcast is designed to share trending topics occurring within the world and our communities and bring them a behavioral and mental health perspective. Welcome to Behavioral Health Today. I'm your host, Peter Fenger, and today I'm joined by Allura Hollowell. Allura is a transformational guide and creator of the Conscious Method, a multidimensional healing approach designed to help people move from inner fragmentation to wholeness. With a deep commitment in human evolution, Allura supports individuals in rewiring relationships, healing core wounds, and addressing higher states of consciousness. Her work empowers people to release fear, decode illusions, and use pain as a portal for lasting change. Through her method, she helps others shift timelines and create aligned, soul-centered lives from the inside out. We're excited to welcome Allura to the show to explore how her consciousness method offers a transformative, multidimensional approach to healing by addressing the root of emotional pain, dismantling mental health stigma, and creating accessible, soul-centered pathways beyond traditional therapy. Allura, we're so excited to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Peter. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm very excited to have you here. I know your consciousness method was very exciting to learn about. So as we begin, I'm curious, share with our listeners your story of awakening and how your near-death experience transformed your understanding of healing and consciousness.
Yeah, I'd love to share about that journey. It happened 7 years ago, and it has radically altered the trajectory of my life. I really feel that everything sort of began. It was like a full rebirth after that experience. So prior to that, I was a stay-home mom of 3 beautiful kids. I didn't really have a spiritual path. I was really trying to survive the day, the lunches, the school drop-offs, the coping with sort of emotional dysfunction on some levels, like a suppression of my emotions, trying to deal with, an ex-husband now that was very dysregulated, trying to just survive life. So I was not really looking for a spiritual practice, although I did feel very innately that something was missing and something was very blocked within me. And friends invited me to a meditation retreat. And I thought, what a great chance for a holiday. And I went along and I was really blown away by my experience of the energy in that space. And I never really experienced energy before, but I could feel it like a visceral sensation, like there was something more to my human experience than just my physical being and my thoughts and just my everyday life. And I ended up one morning going for a walking meditation on a beach where we all walked down to the beach and we had our headsets in and we're going to listen to a meditation. And as I stepped onto that sand, I realized something was not right within me. And I could feel this sort of energetic movement in my body where my consciousness, which I now identify as my consciousness, was moving from my toes all the way up my legs. And it was almost gathering momentum, and felt myself being pulled down to the sand and lying down, closing my eyes, and everyone was off doing their own thing. So it wasn't like I looked particularly, out of place, but I was weighted to the ground. I could not move. And I felt my consciousness move up out of the top of my head spontaneously. And as it moved out, I could actually see my body lying on the ground. And as it moved further out, my consciousness actually merged with this beautiful, beautiful, bright light. And then I realized I was going somewhere, and there was really no going back to my body at that point. It was very much an ineffable experience, hard to describe the immense nature of that merging back to the light. But it was a complete experience of, a completely transcendental experience, I'd say. And then from there, I merged into a void of complete darkness, the infinite realm of everything, everywhere, every space, every time. And that's where my identity really took a break, where I became an infinite, connected, energetic source, which was connected to the all. And for me, that experience was particularly profound because I wasn't actually consciously able to realize myself in that moment, but I realized something greater by default because I was shown how vast the consciousness that supports this experience is. Eventually came back from that vast space back into my body and opened my eyes on that beach and looked around, and all I could see was energy. Everything was sparkling and shimmering. And I realized that even though we feel we're physical, everything's very energetic here. And then from there, I realized, oh my gosh, I'm a human with a nervous system, and a lot of my programming in my mind had dissolved. So I really didn't know exactly who I was, but I could feel my nervous system was very anxious. And I began then to go on this path of working out what is the understanding between us as divine. Divine is kind of a strong word, but spiritual beings that are energetic
Sure.
beings
Yes.
that when they touch that space know that we're truly loved, truly worthy, truly understood, truly connected. And then when we come back, sort of when we open our eyes on this planet, then we have this sense of separation from ourselves. And I wanted to understand not just the internal patterns of my being, but how we interface with what goes on all around us in our experience of this reality. Like, how is it actually designed? Why do we have the aspects we have? Why do we have a mental body that's separate from our emotional and spiritual body? Why do we have a nervous system that alerts us to threat constantly when often our experience is actually safe, but we're programmed into that threat? Why do we run illusions or programs of perception of reality that aren't actually connected to the truth? And all these questions arose, and I began to dive deeper and deeper into them. And I tried to seek a lot of support externally, psychological support, emotional support, and nothing was really encompassing the whole of the human experience. Everything was just touching on the edges.
Aspects, yeah. Huh. Wow, what a profound experience. You talk about transcendental. That is a profound shift. And to be able to have that awareness and really asking so many deep questions, I know that your work led to this process or this program that bridges traditional mental health support with energetic and spiritual healing. So I want to ask you, as you asked those questions and you found answers, how did your multidimensional approach evolve? And maybe share a little bit more about the gaps that you were seeing in conventional models.
Yeah, because it was such a powerful awareness that the seeking outside of me for answers was just getting this very limited aspect of a reflection. So I wasn't able to go deep enough to put all the pieces together. So I went to try and see a psychologist to try and understand what was going on in my mind. But the repetition of talking about the loop of what I was going through, it just made me feel like almost more stuck in it. So I was like, hold on a minute. It just feels like it's affirming it. It's bringing more awareness, but I'm not actually finding a gateway through to reconcile the experience. And then I went to the energy work and I was like, oh, I really think this is amazing, but it's not really grounded in the truth of reality sometimes. It's a little bit too esoteric and not really centered in an understanding that allows you to bring it through to a something you can work with and make it relatable to your reality and to shifting your life. So I felt these two parts were there and I was like, we need to bring them together. And what was underpinning both of these things for me was consciousness. And consciousness is really the broad spectrum inclusion of all aspects of ourselves. So our emotional body, our mental body, our physical body, the whole of our construct of how we perceive and perpetuate our realities. And this underpinning force is where I saw we need to work, because when we shift our consciousness, it's like we shift into a new version of our being, but a new version of our realities. So I was like, let's go there. Let's go there as a foundational aspect that encompasses all of this and connects it all.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that is a comprehensive approach to our consciousness, to the body in itself. I know I shared this last time that we had met, and I've been reading a book called The Artist's Way.
Mm.
And some of the concepts that you're talking about kind of just ripple with some of the things that go on in that book. You're talking about this connection to a higher being or a source. And some of the practices in that book really try to tap your creativity as a vehicle for tapping into this source. When you sort of describe your process, I'm almost trying to redefine that action of using creativity, tapping into the source, and really seeing how that might change my consciousness, right? And trying to maybe evolve my place within the world. I think it's a wonderful concept, and I'm very excited to go a little bit deeper. So I know one of the ideas that you talk about is this loop of experiences and how automatic thoughts and reactions can kind of keep us in cycles of survival, right? And I think your work, as you're sort of building this program around the consciousness method, is trying to help us break out of those patterns. So explain to me the concept of what this loop experience is and how it plays into emotional suffering.
Yes, of course. And I just want to honor, Peter, that creative access is just such a powerful way to shift consciousness as well, because it just means that nothing's fixed. Everything's open for invention and creation, which is what we're here to experience. We're not here to be a victim to reality. We're here to be creating with reality, creating our experience with it. So that looping for me is really that space where we feel, and I felt this in myself, and I feel this with everyone I've worked with, is that we feel like a victim to reality because we're in such an automatic, almost self-made prison of these very predictable thought forms, these very predictable emotional responses, our very predictable behaviors that keep us in a very limited aspect of our expression. And that comes from a lot of fear. So we have a very, very deep level of fear that keeps us in what I call the wounds of perpetuating the states of feeling deeply unloved, unworthy, and misunderstood or unsafe. And these three wounds I found, they kind of are the default mode of all humans. We actually doubt that we're loved, we doubt that we're worthy, we doubt that we're understood and safe. And so then we keep these loops going to try to find ways to create these experiences for ourselves, but we're doing it from an unconscious mode. So we're just recreating on repeat. We're recreating the same circumstances, and you can look back through your life and you can see, wow, I've done this same pattern over and over again, maybe with different people, different places, different timelines, but I've done the same thing over and over again. And that's because there's a very deep root of us that's based in a separation pattern of feeling disconnected from ourselves and trying to make the external reality feel better for us. But we're doing it from an unconscious zone that just repeats these patterns over and over and over again.
Right, right, right. We call them trauma stories. Our body gets hardwired into preventing pain onto our body and that relationship to pain. But there is an awakening, that happens in everyone's life at some point where it starts to come from fate or destiny, and we can decide to choose something different, right? And that's where your consciousness method comes through, is really trying to break through to that and realize, we talk about it as our true self, right? This unharmed version of ourselves that is this, built within the true creator's vision, right? And trying to reconnect with that part. My experience of doing that within the artist's way, and really trying to work through some of the artist's wounds, right? And trying
Mm.
to find some of the paths to creativity that might let my soul flourish, right? And that's just one aspect, right?
And
So
that's just so beautiful. Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. So I'm curious, explain a little bit more about the consciousness method and maybe how it's helping people shift from reacting out of fear and pain to creating with intention and presence, maybe from like a practical sense.
Yeah, well, because we are complex beings. We're not
Yes.
just, very like we're not one dimension, we're multi-dimension. So I really found that there were 12 processes that I had to develop to
Great.
really honor each part of our being. And just for example, if it's okay, I'll just run through a little bit of a kind of an understanding that the first thing we need to come to an acknowledgement of is we are energetic. And most of us discount our energetic nature as being something woo-woo, something that we can't connect with. There's a very simple process where we just realize that most of our energy is going outside of ourselves to create the loops of our reality. So step one is literally bringing our energy back inside ourselves to feel a connection and a wholeness within us. And when our energy comes back in and we get safe in our own bodies, because most people don't feel an inner safety. So that's why they're trying to find external safety constantly. And the way to feel inner safety is to have a relationship with your energy and to feel safe in your own energy without forcing the outside world. When you're safe there, we then need to go through where your pain and fear is stuck in your body. We might talk about that in a minute, but where your pain and fear is where you're anchoring an external reality that connects you to the same loops. And then we want to understand that all of humanity is actually running separation programs. So anything that you think about yourself that is wrong, defective, a problem, an issue, is actually a pathway of evolution. So everyone has a core wound and everyone separates from themselves to experience this ongoing looping, but we actually can flip and reverse that pattern and find our purpose, our genius, our true essence flowing through from realizing that these wounds are just gateways back home to ourselves.
Yes. Yeah, no, I love these concepts. There are a couple thoughts I have around it. The first one, you're talking about, this practice of cultivating within. And I had a really interesting conversation with another the other day, and they're talking about or labeling that as the heroine's journey,
Mm.
because they described as the hero's journey is something going outward, right? I'm searching, something's wrong with me, and I search outward to find it. But she described the heroine's journey as something cultivating from within. When I don't have a cave in order to meditate, I'm able to cultivate that within myself in that moment. And I think that's a beautiful practice. The one thing you're talking about is you're talking about this design that we have something to go through. We might view them as flaws or weaknesses, but the gift in that is that when we are able to transcend those weaknesses into strengths, really build upon it, that's almost our like our journey, and that we are given those things not as a limiting belief, because I think a lot of that work you're doing is trying to help them break down those limitations, but realizing that we are much stronger than what we think and feel, and really the challenge and gift of those challenges is that it's an opportunity for us to arise from that.
Yes, absolutely. Because what I saw very clearly in my journey was that we are source beings. So we come from a wider consciousness and we come into a human dimension and then we go on this journey. But what it showed me really innately is that we can return to being a connected source being actually in a physical body. So it's a fractal or like a kaleidoscope that we don't need to leave the body to be at home in the body and to be safe in the body and to be connected to consciousness via the vessel of the body. So that's where the movement I think humanity is here to make, which is coming home to self. And when you're internal, because we're quantumly projecting or holographically projecting everything from within around us, it's bigger than our thoughts creating our reality. Our nervous system, our energy, our thoughts, our whole design is projecting our reality. So from there, if you shift the pieces within, you're going to get another version of your external experience because you are a powerful creator. It's just that that's got confused in the process.
Wow. Huge concepts, huge concepts.
Yeah.
So I know you had mentioned this as a point that we would talk about later. So I want to bring it up now, and we're talking about a relationship to pain. And I know your key ideas in the work that you're doing is that we're not just healing from pain, but we're healing from the relationship to pain. So explain what that is and then talk about how you're helping people begin to shift that relationship.
Yeah, so the one thing every human fears is their own pain.
Mm.
If you think about the one thing you don't want to have happen, that you fear the most, it's just because you don't want to feel the associated pain that comes with that. So when we realize that, we can realize that pain is actually a really powerful influencer in our experience because it's the one thing we're truly avoiding.
Mm.
So if we develop a conscious relationship with our pain, that means that we don't have to fear anything in our human experience because we've already reconciled the relationship to pain within us.
Mm.
And unfortunately, in a societal space and in a sort of a suppression space, from young ages, we don't get to develop that full, complete relationship with our pain. We're either usually shut down, we're dismissed, we're ignored, we're made to feel isolated, we're punished, we're threatened if we have an emotional experience, or we're just alone in that. So we go, oh, hold on, this pain is not safe because it isolates me from those around me. And it's projected as not being a safe place to go. So my work reconfigures the relationship to pain, which is that when we leave the suffering, which is the repetitive mental thoughts and emotional and maybe addiction to pain, and we go deeper into pain in the body. If you get really still and feel, pain is a sensation in the physical body. That's all it is.
Mhm.
And that sensation holds consciousness that has been trapped in the body from previous pains. So you'll find your pain is actually like a portal. The one pain you may have in your body of abandonment, you may be feeling it in a relationship now, but if you follow the trajectory of that pain in your body back, it's going to be the abandonment of friends in high school, of, when your dad left, of when you abandoned, were abandoned from source consciousness. There's a fractal all the way back that holds deep, deep pain. So when you can slip into that portal, you don't have to go through every trauma because you're reconciling the pain in the present right now that's in your body, because your body is holding the truth of all that pain. And when you have that relationship, it's like, wow, there's pure liberation that happens as you have a cellular expansion, an energetic expansion around that pain, and it no longer traps you.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor.
Nearly 9 in 10 registered voters believe the nation faces a mental health crisis, according to a new USA Today Suffolk University poll. Americans are more concerned than ever about their mental health. Mental health first aid provides the resources and training to identify, understand, and respond to signs of mental health and substance use challenges. It provides the confidence and skills needed to offer life-saving assistance, and it provides peace of mind. Our experts provide mental health first aid training for adults, teens, caregivers, veterans, law enforcement, EMS, and school faculty. Mental health concerns are on the rise, but evidence-based training through mental health first aid can make a difference. Visit mentalhealthfirstaid.org to find a course near you, or email hello@mentalhealthfirstaid.org to schedule a training. Courses are available for individuals, groups, organizations, and companies of all sizes. Visit mentalhealthfirstaid.org and make a difference in your community.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And the way that you're describing pain, it's very interesting. We see this happen in multiple ways, right? We can talk about generational trauma and how it's passed down from our genetics. But also, the technique that you're offering is trying to adjust the pain, not necessarily by asking you to relive it, through stories or having to dig up stuff, but really trying to maybe address it in that moment. I've heard it described as a couple of different things, but we're all kind of talking about the same thing. Is that we have a physical reaction to some of this, and when we can become aware of how our body is maybe reacting to that relationship to pain, when we're able to go back and heal it from the source, our body can finally complete that emotional loop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and it's the application of consciousness. Like
Yes.
you apply full consciousness safely in the body to feeling and opening into that space. And it will feel like, if you touch it properly, it can feel like you want to, like it's a death experience, because you've held your identity around protecting that pain and
Yes.
keeping that pain really safe. So I find people that I work with that actually touch that pain, it's almost like I call it dying to self, because you're dying into that pain, the version of you that's protected that. So you actually have a very visceral, cathartic opening through that. And what I found in the work I've done is that consciousness gets gated in pain. So when you've had these fractures or these pain points that have been these really difficult, painful things for you, it's like the body protects you by putting that pain in a place where it can manage it.
Yeah.
So we want to actually go through that management and open that pain up, which means that we're going to actually have to go through something that felt like death in the time and reopen that and actually feel that and expand that. But in doing so, you're liberating your whole being. And people actually come to me and go, Allura, I want to find the next pain point. Because they know the minute they find that pain and they feel it fully, they're liberating consciousness, energy, and their life loop.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the beautiful things about this is, I think at the end of this work, you're providing the individual with the tools for them to cultivate it themselves. This goes back to,
100%.
again, one of the first parts that you're talking about is a heroine's journey, is being able to be the source of removing these blockage. Again, if I can kind of like use another term to describe the same thing, I've heard it be called like self-parenting, right? When you're able to kind of go back into your life and reparent yourself with maybe the emotional response you never got as a child. You're using these moments of awareness to kind of go back and consciously unblocking things or completing that emotional loop that might not have been completed.
Yes, definitely. Because we are multidimensional. So we feel like we're here in this place and time. But if you dive into your body, excuse me, your body will be able to show you all spaces and times where it's had this pain. So we can actually go through and reorientate and connect with that part of ourselves as if they're here now. And we can hold that version of ourselves. And that for me is wholeness. It's bringing out all the fractured versions that have left us because there's been pain, and bringing them back in and connecting with them and making them safe. So that means not just one inner child, but all the inner children. And when people that do this work with me, that's one of the processes we do, where you can tune in to a time and space and bring that child into cohesion with you and connect with her or him so clearly that you feel a sense of relief that part of you is now held. So it's a profound experience we get to have as humans.
Yeah, it sounds profound. And even just as the way you're describing, these techniques and the processes, and even as I've done my best to sort of summarize and understand some of it, even the way that I'm talking about it being, very egocentric, the way you're describing is even recognizing the energetic space, right? We expand beyond our bodies, and you're even recognizing the past relationships of the genetics before us. You are encompassing all of that into this theory as you approach sort of healing.
Yeah, because we need to have this multidimensional approach to get deep enough. I think our consciousness and the evolution of humanity is asking for that. And you mentioned something really powerful before. This is about sovereignty. This is about you understanding, or whoever does this work, understanding how to be the sovereign healers of themselves, the sovereign guides to themselves. So the processes are like the modalities to work through, but you're actually going to do that within yourself, because that's what I found as well with the healing kind of modalities. It's like we lean into relying on someone external to get that shift for us, where actually we really need to know our sovereign nature and how powerful that is. And that needs to be radically supported so we can feel safe and held and understand what we're doing, but we're doing the work for ourselves.
Yeah. And the interesting part is you sort of describe it as it sort of being individual process, I know that your 12-week program includes both individual reflection, but also intimate group work. And I love that process, right? Because within groups, we're able to help each other kind of mirror and thus sort of come together and sort of evolve or awaken in a group experience. So I want to ask you, what is the value of healing in a community, and how does that help shape the transformation people experience in your
Mm.
course?
Yeah, that's such a powerful question. I find some people, when they first hear this work, they go, oh my gosh, that feels like another language. It feels like you're speaking a complete other language.
Yes, I had
Yeah,
that experience.
I know it's a lot, right? And
Yes.
that's because it's another layer of consciousness that I'm holding, and I'm inviting you to step into that consciousness, which is what I was asked to do when I had my out of body experience. It was like a fast track in my evolution that showed me
Yes.
this level that we all have access to. It's not me, it's not special to me, it's for everybody. So in a group, what we all do together is we're all scaffolding and reflecting and seeing everyone's evolution through the consciousness, but also knowing that there are these very core stages that we have to go through in the unwinding. And some of the biggest work I do is supporting people to see where they've trapped themselves in their own illusions of what they think things are. So dysfunctional relationships, survival modes of being with jobs, feeling disconnected from people they love, feeling like they're trapped into some medication for their minds, or they're trapped into some level of financial situation, or whatever it is. This consistent sort of tapping in and going, is that really the truth for you? Is that really where we need to find, where you're leaning into truth? And that as a group process is amazing, because you get to witness people challenge things that they thought were fixed and go, actually, this is no longer fixed in me, because I felt the pain and fear below it and processed it so deeply. And then I've transformed my whole reality. So being in that supportive zone to see the steps and the stages, and also know that you can do this work. And I have a podcast called the Consciousness Method Podcast, where it's just interviewing the beautiful humans that have had life-changing shifts from becoming aware of this consciousness. And the thing they'll all say is it's an ongoing evolution. Like, it's like getting the keys to the design, but you keep unlocking the doors and you keep stepping through. And I think this concept that we heal and we're done is not real. We actually are evolving our whole existence. So knowing a method to go through that and evolve your consciousness is so supportive and so nurturing. And to do it in a community that speaks the same language is like, wow, it's really fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it can be so comforting being in a group that understands, to where, you're kind of pushing each other, knowing that there is space for your evolution. I'm going to use
Yeah.
your term, right? Because you can watch others go through it and know that you too have access to that as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And everyone has access.
So I know you've worked with people from all walks of life. I know you've worked with people that have struggled with mental health and career issues and spiritual crisis. I want to ask you, what connects all of those challenges at a root level?
What connects them is the human that's seeking, that knows that I am having an experience and there has to be something else, which was what my motivation was as well. There was like that niggling feeling of, this can't be it. This can't be my existence, my life, where I get stuck. So I think it's that core motivation that the people that find me, they've often done multiple modalities. They've tried healing, they've tried, sort of traditional mental health work. They've tried all sorts of things, and they're looking for something that's comprehensive, because they are a seeker, they're a natural seeker, and they have a core belief that it doesn't have to be stuck. And that's, and they're the ones, because it does demand that drive on some levels. Like you need to have the impetus to want to change. And then that drives the process. And that I often have to help people develop, because they feel like a victim to their reality. They know something should be different, but they're not sure what. So it's getting over that loop that you are actually able to have a different experience here. So once that gets initiated, that they're like, oh, wow, I tried this internally. I feel this shift of my consciousness, something shifts around me, and then they begin to get the momentum. It's like, wow, everything that happens around you, every challenge, every roadblock, every limitation is only a reflection of where we need to do the work. Once we get
Yeah.
that work done,
Yeah.
that dissolves. That key, that door opens, that key is used. We go to the next level, and we just keep processing through consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, you're talking about keys. Keys and being able to unlock these things. And it sounds just like what you're describing of being able to have the tools and understanding the maybe shift in your mindset and the breakdown of barriers that might make up our limiting beliefs and how far that can go when we start to get curious and unlock things.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so profound. And it's the mind, but the mind connected to the nervous system, connected to the emotional response, connected to the energetic expression. So it's like, and I hear a lot of people talk about your thoughts create your reality. And I just see that as the very top level, and that we're missing this whole piece of our whole design, because we're actually a whole organism that we need to take into account all these parts, and they project the whole of the reality. So when you shift consciousness, you literally feel like a different being. You look at something and you go, that's not, it's not even like we have to think about it differently. We look at it and we go, it's just not resonating like it used to. Like, I just don't want to go into that argument with my partner, or I just don't want to keep showing up for my boss and trying to get that feedback that doesn't really land. I just don't want to do these things anymore, or force myself to 5 a.m. workouts when I'm not losing weight. It's like, I don't want to be in that structure. I want to blow that apart and find that new vision, that new space.
Yeah. So I am kind of curious. So as you describe maybe this process, what does it look like in practice? Is it like talk therapy? Is it talk therapy with meditation for folks to reflect upon? Is it energetic medicine where we are, using additional tools from a somatic side and removing things that way? What does it look like? Is it all encompassing?
Yeah, pretty much. I'll kind of talk you through the process.
Yeah.
So I'll get someone to be very, very conscious of their reality as it is. So I'll get you to give me a comprehensive list of all the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that are attached to that experience in your life. And that's your addiction mode. That's where you're in addiction to doing the same things over and over again. Once we identify those things, then we can deeply work in the process-based experience, which for most of it is going within to do processes. So they're guided processes that you actually do within your own body. So there's 12. So you're going in and you're moving the pieces around. As you're moving them around internally and learning how to do that, you're sharing with me what's going on. And I'm reflecting the piece to you that you can't see because it's embedded in your unconscious zone.
Yeah.
So as humans, it's a really tricky design, but we have a part of us we can't see because it's so enmeshed with our identity. So my role is to show you what's not seen in you, so then you can go see it consciously for yourself. And once you see it consciously for yourself, you do the processes around it, and that bit is no longer running the show from an unconscious zone. So you then get to work with it and mold reality in a new way. And that process of reflection, self-processing, receiving my reflections, and receiving this ongoing, I suppose, a rising of consciousness, it means that you get a complete shift through your whole being.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. As you describe that process, you're inviting somebody to share their story, but you're giving them the tools to rewrite it.
Yeah.
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 I'm curious because you are dealing with a lot of fear and a lot of avoidance to dealing with those things.
Mm.
How do you help people move through the resistance?
Well, I know it. I recognize it's their fear. So,
Mm.
and I recognize, because I think what makes my journey so unique is that I've had to sit with the deepest levels of fear and pain that I think any humans have to go through to really sharpen my capacity to do this role. So I know I've been through the initiation. So when I can identify that fear in someone, I'm able to really hold them in a higher awareness that guides them into themselves safely, but also firmly. It's like, we're going to go here and you're going to be okay. So it's that sense of knowing that there's a path here and it's tough to walk, but you're being guided to walk it because you're actually wanting to walk it as well. The only people that want to do this work are the ones that want to walk this path. So it's already happening. It's already a self-fulfilled prophecy. It's just me showing them that this is possible and that they're not going to die. Because the fear that you're going to die if you do, these things, and they could be really small things, but they're actually big things that keep you trapped in a limited experience. So when you have the reflection that, you just need to step through that space, even though you feel like it's the end of the world, then you open up the next space. So holding people and honoring them in that fear is huge.
Yeah. That is huge. That is huge, and you're really stepping into a very powerful role when you can come alongside folks and really kind of shepherd them in that way. There's true transformation that you can make in people's lives.
Yeah. And that's really why, that's my why. It hasn't come from I'm going to go do a course or I'm going to study this. It's really come from the consciousness, and it's really driven me in a way that, it's showing me what I'm here for and what I'm here to do. And I believe everyone has a unique ray of consciousness of their own gifts that they're here to bring forward. And when we clear that wounding and we clear that pain and fear, I witness people I work with stepping into that constantly. And it's not like these big kind of I want the money and I want this and I want that. It's like, I actually want to be in direct relationship with my purpose and my true safety, my true abundance, my true love. And that brings a reality around them that's beyond their wildest dreams, because it's not coming from needing something external to be safe. They anchor it all in and then it just arrives. So it's a beautiful process to watch. And I feel very honored to be supporting people through this, because it feels like a gift.
Yeah, I can't imagine a greater meaning for one's life than to find their true purpose and giving it out freely, right? You're talking about how this is your gift and you're giving it outwardly. That's a beautiful sentiment.
Oh, thank you, Peter.
I want to ask you, for those who might be feeling stuck, we talked a little bit about disillusioned, or people that are unsure where to turn. What's one step you'd recommend for them?
Take a couple of minutes, couple of times a day, just close your eyes and just bring awareness into where that pain lies in your body. And just feel in and just connect your awareness that this pain is safe for me to feel. And I'm just going to feel a little bit of that pain today. And what you're doing is you're stretching your capacity in your nervous system to not go outward, but to go inward, to feel a little bit more of yourself, just a little bit. And then over the days, we're just feeling a little bit more and more until you actually feel a degree of safety to sit with your being, with your pain, instead of acting out of your pain constantly. So if there's one small practice that you could begin on a daily basis, that would be where I would begin.
Yeah, that's lovely. I appreciate you sharing that with me. So I want to ask you, as we wrap up for today, where can our listeners learn more about your consciousness method, or join your program, or follow your work? Share where we can learn more.
Thank you. So yes, the Consciousness Method podcast is a way to hear some of my masterclasses and some of the beautiful humans that have done this work. I've got my website, allurahollowell.com, and you can find all the details on there and send me an email. If you want to explore, there's a link there to have a chat about having, a deeper dive into the program and seeing if it's aligned. And then I'm going to have my book coming out. So if you're listening, you can have a look for that on all the platforms. Its title is Unloved, Unworthy, Unknown, which are the 3 core wounds of humanity. So if you're interested in reading about the work, that'll be available.
Well, I would love to seed an idea for you to come back onto our show and talk to us about your book. That would be lovely. I had a wonderful time learning more about you and your work and the consciousness method. So thank you very much for your time today.
Oh, thank you, Peter. And thank you for your beautiful, inspirational questions. It's been such a gift to share today. And yes, I'd be honored to come back.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you listeners for taking the time to join us. You can follow us on our social media at TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and more at Behavioral Health Today. If you like our show, give us 5 stars and leave us a review. As always, the resources for this episode and an archive of all of our other episodes can be found at our webpage at triadhq.com/BHT. And we look forward to having you back with us next time on Behavioral Health Today. We appreciate all the support from our community, and if you like our show, one of the best ways you can support it is by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a review. Behavioral Health Today is a podcast part of the Triad Behavioral Health Network, all rights reserved.